Hello, and welcome to the next edition of our interview series in providing resources for the federal workforce. My name is Brian Kuhn. I'm certified financial planner with Wealth Enhancement, 24 years in the financial services industry, and author of Total Compensation, a practical guide to federal employee benefits. Today, my guest is Nancy Segal, and we're thrilled to have her today talk about a wide variety of topics that affect federal employees. Nancy, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate it. My name is Nancy Segal, as you said. I am the founder and owner of Solutions for the Workplace. I have a 30-year career as a federal HR specialist and leader, and since my retirement over the last 20 years or so, I have been working with individuals and federal agencies to navigate the federal HR process. In addition, I have 3 books out on federal HR type issues. I have a weekly career column at fedweek.com. I have a YouTube channel with over 200 videos on it. I live and breathe federal HR.
Fantastic. And we've been following the similar topics. I've been following your content on LinkedIn. It's been very helpful. So as we discussed this in early March, one of the biggest topics of the federal workforce at the moment is the upcoming RIF. So you had a great LinkedIn post that had 10 things every federal employee should know. Can you summarize that for us?
Absolutely. And thank you for following me. It is a very challenging time for federal employees, and there's not a lot of information. So I think the things that federal employees ought to know is that there are real RIF procedures, and those are posted on OPM's website. And agencies, to run a legitimate RIF, have to follow those procedures, right? So that's the first thing. Typically, there is a 60-day notice for any reduction in force. If a reduction in force is actually completed, employees also can appeal those actions to the Merit Systems Protection Board. In addition, along with a RIF, if you are RIFed, you might very well be eligible for what's called discontinued service retirement, which the shorthand for that is early out. If you are RIFed and you are not eligible for early out, you are entitled to severance pay. And there's a precise calculation for that as well. In addition, if you are a career employee in the competitive service, you are also eligible for CTAP and ICTAP, which basically gives you priority for rehire within a year of being separated back into the federal government. You also may be eligible, depending on your situation, for what's called bump and retreat rights. The process for employees in the accepted service is different. There is no CTAP or ICTAP eligibility, nor are there bump and retreat rights unless an individual agency has made a decision to actually bestow those rights. So there's a lot more we could say, and this is a highly technical process, but that's the essence of how things work.
I love all of the terminology within the federal employment environment. It's great. I've
I'm a
always enjoyed
geek,
hear,
cannot help myself.
hearing all of the terms and nuance to it. So another thing we're seeing is federal workers continue to receive these weekly emails asking what they did last week. Can you outline why this is unusual and some things employees should be aware of as they consider responding?
It is unusual because it's never happened before. And it is
Yep.
also unusual because it is not being asked for by employees' direct supervisors. So it is outside the chain of command. Those two things are highly unusual. All of that being said, individual employees, in my view, should do what their supervisors tell them to do. If their supervisors tell them to respond, they should respond without snark or side comments. If their supervisor tells them to respond and they don't, that makes the employee potentially subject to a disciplinary action for either failure to follow instructions or insubordination, depending on how the request was framed. So that's the best advice. Do what your supervisor says. And if your supervisor says don't answer it, get that in writing because you want to cover yourself.
Another thing I've seen recently, and you shared content on this, is the changing relationship that the government has with unions. That seems to be changing rapidly. Can you bring us up to speed on that?
Well, just earlier today, the Secretary of Homeland Security announced that the 50,000 employees at TSA no longer had bargaining rights. So that's literally hot off the press. In addition, the administration has put a call out for what's called official time spent by either union stewards or union officials such as the president, the vice president, etc. They have also moved to reinstate the executive orders that were issued under the first administration, which is to say official time can only be used off duty, outside of duty hours, to also say that the government should not give union officials free office space, telephone supplies, things like that, and moving to invalidate or significantly minimize what has been traditionally considered negotiable. And we saw that illustrated in the return to work directives as well as the telework directives. So lots and lots of changes on the relationship between unions and management, a reinterpretation.
Yeah. So these changes are designed to save the government money. That's the theme of them. Can you address, is that effectively happening, or how that's supposed to happen? Reductions in budget or becoming more efficient, or other ways we might accomplish the goal?
As we all know, litigation costs money. And so everything that has been done has mostly been appealed, which costs time and dollars. The DOJ savings, their receipt wall, as they call it, has not been accurate. I myself am on that wall, and every one of the contracts that they cited as saving money have been successfully fulfilled and paid out. And so there's no savings. And some of what is on, at least about me, goes back to 2009. So not exactly a savings. There are ways, there are ways to do everything the administration wants to do. There's no question, there's processes. When you don't follow the stated processes, the regulations, the written guidance, et cetera, that's when agencies lose cases. And, reinstalling federal employees who have been terminated costs money. that could have better been spent on programmatic issues. Look, are there efficiencies to be gained? Of course there are, always, in any big program. Are there employees who don't feel, are there employees who don't meet expectations? Of course, once again, in any big organization, you're going to have that. But on balance, most employees that I've run into, which has been tens of thousands over my 50-year career, most employees I've run into are committed to what they do, committed to their program areas, and want to serve the taxpayer. And so there's efficiencies to be had. There's money to be saved. But it takes a planned and strategic approach to actually gain those savings. And most of the savings that are claimed have either been reversed or found to be actually not that accurate.
Yeah. You share a lot of information specifically about SES employees, which is a category. For anyone in that category watching, or for those who want to educate themselves on who they are, can you explain them?
Sure. So the Senior Executive Service, aka SES, is the layer of employees that are between the political appointees and everyone else. So there's about 2.3, 2.4 million federal civilian employees at the moment. There are a total of 8,000 members of the SES. So it really is a small cadre. And there is a very rigorous process to go through to become a member of the SES. That is changing, and so the whole SES is in flux. Many of the SES positions are likely to be put in what's called SES General, which are political appointments. There have been specific calls to move CIOs, Chief Information Officers, and just yesterday, CHICOs, Chief Human Capital Officers, from what's called SES Career, which is exactly what it sounds like, to SES General, which are political appointments. And agencies are compiling lists of other SES positions which should be moved to SES General, to political appointments. So that's a radical change. And you add to that, the application process is also in flux. And we do not have the updated version of what's going to happen in terms of the application process. I expect we'll see that in the next 45 to 60 days.
So shifting to your primary focus of helping people either enter the federal workforce or exit it to a new career, what are some things you think federal workers who might be concerned about their job security should be doing right now?
So I think there's, excuse me, a number of things they should be doing right now. Thing number one is get a copy of their official personnel folder. Yep. And if they're overwhelmed by that idea, at least print out every single standard Form 50, because a standard Form 50 is a notification of personnel action, and that is the documentation that HR relies upon for your job, for your salary, for your title, for your location, all of those kinds of things. Please check those documents carefully and make sure there are no errors, no transposed numbers in your Social Security number, for example. If there are, you need to follow up. So first thing, get a copy of your 50s. Second thing, get a copy of your pay statements. You'll need it to file for unemployment. You want to check your leave, which if you are RIF'd, you're going to get paid out for that. You want to make sure that all of that stuff is accurate. The third thing I would print out is a copy of my performance reviews. I would use those for preparing your resume and pulling accomplishments. So those are the three things people should pull immediately. Something else that employees should do is clean out their email. Make sure there's nothing personal in their email. You're not supposed to really use your government email for anything personal, but people do. So clean that up. Do not delete any official documents, obviously. Something else you want to do is get a copy of people's personal contact information. Your boss, the colleagues you want to stay with. You may need those people for references.
Yeah.
Okay. So
That's a good point.
Yeah, absolutely. You also want to make sure your LinkedIn is up to date, because in a modern job search, LinkedIn is essential. That includes a picture, that includes a headline, which are the words under your name, a robust about section, and you should aim for about 300 to 500 connections to really start to come up in the algorithms. And start networking. You can't just sit there and hope that someone's going to find you. You should also start working on your corporate resume. And to the sponsor of this series, you need to look at your finances. Your finances. Can you actually afford to be unemployed? How long can you afford to be unemployed?
Yeah, well, appreciate that very much, and I agree with that. That's a lot to do, and that's all. Those are all action items, I think, that to consider, even if nothing ends up changing with your
Absolutely.
And we hope that's the case for anyone who wants to remain, employed with the federal government as long as they originally planned. So this has been great information, very helpful, Nancy. Appreciate it. We're going to have you back as things progress. For anyone that wants to get hold of you directly, we have your contact information up on the screen. What would be the best way to reach you, and what should they expect from that conversation?
I think the best way to start is an email with some information about exactly what they want, right? So that I can prepare for a follow-up call. And if somebody is looking for a resume, it would be great to see their current resume, so I can get a little bit of context about who they are, what their experience is, etc.
Fantastic. And then for our part as financial advisors, if you have concerns regarding anything to do with your money or your retirement or your career path, we are here. We offer a complimentary consultation. We can map out or visualize your financial future and see where things go from there. We focus on helping federal employees. So my contact information is up now on the screen. Thank you for your time today. We'll see you on the next interview.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.